What is up, YouTube? I'm Devon, DaVinci, leader of the Renaissance Crew, and you're watching DaVinci Reacts. And today, we are going to be looking at the presentation for Unreal Engine 5, something that is going to be coming out for the next generation of consoles, or at least around the same time as the next generation of consoles. Let's go ahead and check this out and see, let's give the console peasants a chance to embrace their next generation technology until us PC Master Race folk actually get the real next generation stuff, and then they can think about PlayStation 6 and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? But back in the day, I was a big time Sony fanboy. Since then, I've obviously backed off of it because nowadays, it's weird. Like, back in the day when I was a kid, console exclusives were significant. Like, there was a lot of difference between buying a PlayStation and a Nintendo, or buying a Sega and a Nintendo. There was a huge difference. Even games that were released by the same people, or at least branded under the same name, were completely different. Aladdin was completely different. I was about to say Lion King, the TMNT games, all, like, they were just completely different games. And nowadays it's like, besides a handful of games, everything that comes out for both consoles are identical. So it's almost no reason to buy a specific system unless there are unique first-party games that you really want to get. Like if you're a big Uncharted fan, or Last of Us, or if you're really big into Halo. Like, that's the only reason to buy a specific console. Besides that, everything is the same. And with Xbox, it's even worse because I believe that all their games nowadays are being released on PC. So if you got a gaming PC, there's almost no reason to get an Xbox at all. But with that being said, let's jump into this and see what this Unreal Engine 5 thing is all about. I'll give my thoughts, or give further thoughts about how I think next generation technology is going to keep going in a certain direction, because it's not going to be all just graphics. Let's check this out.
Hello, I'm Brian Karras, Technical Director of Graphics here at Epic Games.
Hi, I'm Jerome Plateau, Art Director of the Special Project.
A few years ago, we got together as a team and brainstormed where we thought we could push forward the state-of-the-art in real-time graphics. There were two key areas that stood out. The first, dynamic global illumination. Beautiful bounce lighting instantaneously.
I don't have to be constrained to do a game where the world has to be static, and I'm able to iterate a lot faster.
And we call this new system Lumen. And we're about to show you what it is capable of. But first, there was another area that we thought we could push forward.
Let's see what you have to
truly
offer.
Virtualized geometry. The artist wouldn't have to be concerned over poly counts, draw calls, or memory. Could directly use film quality assets and bring them straight into the engine.
And that's a big deal for artists. I just want to be able to import my ZBrush model, my photogrammetry scan, my CAD data, without wasting any time optimizing, creating LODs, or even lowering the quality to make it hit frame rate.
In the end, that's what it's all about. Art that just works. And we call this new technology Nanite. Here is the future
Nanite.
of Unreal Engine running live on a PlayStation 5.
Awesome, let's take a look at it.
This has to be the right way.
So I'm guessing this is in-game, or... Okay, in-engine, yeah. It's interesting. Remember back in the day when PlayStation 2 first came out and they said, our system is going to be able to generate graphics that are comparable to Toy Story, and people were blown away, like, how is that possible? Like, and even then, they didn't really deliver on that. Like, maybe the games towards the very end of its life cycle might have been able to get close to that, but we didn't really get Toy Story graphics until PlayStation 3. Now, who the hell is Toy Story, and why should we care about it? These graphics put all that stuff to shame. But yeah, like I said, next generation technology is going in a certain direction, and it's not all graphics, so I don't want to just stick on, oh, the graphics are getting so much better, because there is a ceiling.
Before we continue, let's stop a moment and take a look at some of the key features of this demo. Much of what you see was built with Quixel Megascan assets, but instead of using the game versions, we used the cinematic versions, which would typically only be used in film. There are around 1 million triangles each, and thanks to virtual texturing, they all use 8K textures as well. Nanite can render an insane number of triangles very quickly.
Okay, so would PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, or whatever the hell it's called, would they be able to do 8K textures? Because that's something that us PC folk know about. That's what separates the graphics between PC and console games. The fact that consoles normally can't do great texture qualities compared to computers. If they're doing 8K texture technology, then we got a ball game. Then there's a competition again. Yeah, I mean, would they like what would the disk space or the limits for the consoles be? Like, I'm wondering how much space would the disc be able to hold, because 8K textures take up a lot of space.
There are over 1 billion triangles of source geometry in each frame that Nanite crunches down losslessly to around 20 million drawn triangles. What does that many triangles look like? This isn't noise.
Oof.
These are the triangles, each a different color. Most are so small that they look like noise.
What is this? What is
Nanite
this stretch
achieves
stuff over
detail
here?
down to the pixel, which means
There's like
triangles are often the
stretch
size of
textures.
pixels. This amount of geometric detail requires shadows to be pixel accurate as well, and Nanite can do that too. Speaking of lighting, all of the lighting in this demo is completely dynamic, with the power of Lumen that even includes multi-bounce global illumination. No light maps, no baking here. Without GI, all of that beautiful lighting is gone. With Lumen enabled, we can move the light and the bounce changes instantly.
Cool.
Okay, let's keep going.
Now, when are we going to be able to see this in VR? I want to see this technology in VR games.
We've made some great additions to our audio system as well. Convolution reverb allows us to measure reverberation characteristics of real spaces, like actual caves that we sampled, and reproduce them in virtual spaces. Sound field rendering allows us to record and play back spatialized audio.
They're going to turn this into the next Tomb Raider game.
All of this adds up to a more immersive experience. This swarm of bats was created with our Niagara effects system. Particles in Niagara can now talk to one another and understand their environment like never before. We've also added a ton of new functionality to run fluid simulations like you see in the water below.
See, water's always been an iffy thing in video games. It's never been properly done because of how unique it moves and interacts with
The demo
the
runs on our
environment.
chaos physics system. Here we are using it to accurately simulate the rigid bodies of the falling rocks and the cloth of her scarf.
Like the only way we're going to be able to get water like perfect is if we can actually make it like water, where you have it broken down to the molecule, but these molecules are able to like connect with each other whenever they get together. It probably, maybe it's because of the demand that it would have on your memory and processing power, but it sounds like we're getting close. Maybe we can finally get some realistic water. If they can do 8K textures and stuff, I don't see why they can't do water molecules.
Now that the environment is so complex, we've needed to greatly improve our animation systems to adapt. We've added predictive foot placement and motion warping, which dynamically modifies IK and body position to look more natural. For the character to more realistically interact with the environment, we've added the ability to trigger seamless contextual animation events, like her hand on the door.
Looks promising.
I wanted to see if she had any footprints, but the shadow was kind of blocking it. I couldn't see it.
Dynamic GI is amazing, not just for speeding up iteration, but also for its impact on
There we go.
gameplay.
Special effects.
Any
that's
light
what I
source
wanted to
can
see.
move while
It
still
might
having
be.
beautiful bounce lighting. Dynamic illumination means specular as well, which you can see on all the metal surfaces.
That's a lot
You
of
can even
roaches.
see the Niagara-powered bugs reacting to the light. Lumen not only reacts to moving light sources, but also changes in geometry.
I would have liked to have seen the
Remember
little
we
hand
mentioned
light
high
on
poly assets?
to see it
This
interact with the
statue
other
is
light.
imported directly from ZBrush and is more than 33 million triangles. No baking of normal maps,
There we
no
go.
authored LODs.
Yeah, mixing both lights. That's all I want to see.
And we can do more than a single statue. There are nearly 500 of that exact statue at the same detail level placed in this room
Wow.
for a total of over 16 billion triangles from statues alone. Over this entire demo, there are hundreds of billions of triangles.
I'm still skeptical. We've seen tech demos in the past, and when a system first comes out, they never look like the tech demos. Normally, that is like after developers have perfected the method of making games on a console. That's when you start to see games come out that look like the tech demos from when the system first launched. I'm skeptical. I also don't see how, like, this is a tech demo, so they can put all these triangles and 8K textures and everything else in it because it's only maybe a couple minutes long. But when you have like a full-on game, how much space would that take up? Like, I can just look it up and try to figure out like how much space they're willing to give you, like how big are the game's going to be. But I mean, unless they're giving us like 50 terabyte hard drives, I don't see how you can get more than like 3 games on a regular hard drive. Like, I don't.
So with Nanite, you have limitless geometry, and with Lumen, you have fully dynamic lighting and global illumination, all running on a PlayStation 5.
Light upgraded too. Alright, get out of there. Looks like it's about to collapse.
There's not much time left.
And this doesn't need to be constrained to small rooms. It can stretch all the way to the horizon.
The portal, it's open.
I want to know if all that in the background, can you
Don't
travel
fail
to
me
that?
now.
Oh, she's dead. What the hell? So, okay, she's a superhero. First I thought she was a character like Jubilee, like she just make lights, but now all of a sudden, okay. Okay.
It's time to see what's next.
Unreal Engine is making great strides. My dumb ass was thinking Unreal Engine V. Coming in 2021. Okay. I can respect it. Yeah, like I said, I'm still skeptical because I just don't think that we're at a position right now where we can create a game that requires this much memory. Like, I don't think we are. Like I said, unless the next consoles that come out have terabytes of space that you can put stuff on, I don't see you having more than maybe because right now maybe you can have like 1 terabyte for a game, but I don't see having more than like 5 games on something that size. It has to be way bigger. See, normally whenever somebody creates a game and it comes out for consoles, eventually it will come out on PC as well. And what happens when it comes out on PC is the PC community will start to mod it, and that's where you get the higher textures and bigger resolutions, higher frame rates, mods with the dynamic lighting and things like that. Like that's how you get the most out of a game. And with this, maybe we wouldn't have to. I don't see us needing to get higher than 8K textures, unless the texture is like really, really, really big. But yeah, this is more of a ball game. Console has, they kind of put their best foot forward. This is going to be a bit more of a challenge this time around. We can't just go ahead and rest on our laurels and be like, hey, we're PC Master Race. Oh boy, okay. Console's bringing their A game. Let's figure this out. Okay, so like I was saying, graphics. Back in the day, graphics were the final frontier. Normally, a game was, besides obviously the gameplay, a game was judged on what its graphics were capable of. Back in, I want to say it started with the PlayStation, the 16-bit era, and before that, we didn't really focus too much on graphics. There were some pretty games, obviously, like Chrono Trigger and Secret of Mana and things like that, like games that just look good. Even today, I still appreciate fine pixel art, but it wasn't until 3D came in that like we really start focusing. Okay, we got to try to get towards realism, because early on, the first 3D games were not pretty, and it was like, okay, we got to focus on trying to get out of this period and get closer to realistic. And PlayStation 2 was the first time that, like, for me, I was like, okay, now we're in realistic graphics. When Final Fantasy X came out, it blew my mind. Like, I couldn't. This is going to be a running theme as well. I didn't think graphics would get better. Like, we've hit the pinnacle. Like, this is the top. Final Fantasy X's graphics are, there's going to be nothing better than this. And then, obviously I was wrong. As time went on, more and more games came out, more systems came out, and graphics got better and better. But what I was saying is, we are going to hit a limit on how great graphics can get, because the technology is going to get bottlenecked by the artists. You can only make graphics as good as the artists can make those graphics. And if the artists, I don't think there's any artist that can make 100% realistic 3D stuff, because there's so many different like small dynamic things. I think that if they were able to do something like that, it would take them decades. So I don't see how it can, unless they all I can think of is unless they create an engine that can do the small stuff for you, like creating individual pores and the different textures on clothes and things like that, to the point where like it gets down to the thread, down to each individual pore, each individual hair, all that stuff. Like just generate that so the artist doesn't have to worry about it. But the thing is, you have to create some type of algorithm where the system will know the skins from the fabrics, from the materials, from the, like, I'm sure that's not complicated. So, and I can see it happening, but I still feel you're held back by artists' limitations. And even still, even if they were able to create mind-numbingly, like mind-blinding, realistic graphics to the point where your mind just cannot see the difference, I feel like what the next few generation of consoles are going to do is they're going to focus less on graphics and focus more on processing power. Like, it's one thing to have the character the player's playing as to look realistic as possible. It's another thing to have an NPC way in the background having that exact same level of quality while they're somewhere far off in the distance. Like, that's what I think we're going to be moving more towards. Like, individual, dynamic particle effects, things like that. Like let's say you're playing a sports game, for example. Normally on sports games, what they do is they'll improve the hell out of the player models, they'll improve the hell out of the courts or the fields or whatever else. They'll improve the quality of the ball you're playing with, but things in the background like the announcers and audience members and the arena that you might be playing in, those tend to take a back seat, and you'll notice the lower level of quality when it comes to like audiences and stuff like that. What I feel like they're going to do is they're going to get to the point where audiences have just as much quality put into them as the player models do. But the problem is nowadays the reason we can't do that is because when you're talking about player models, you're talking about maybe 10 models. If you're talking about like a really big sport like American football, you might have 50 models at one time, but that's just it. It's 50. When you're talking about bringing the audience into it, now you're talking about thousands of people or models that have to have the same level of care put into them. And because we're not at that level yet as far as processing power, we can't do that. That's why the audience members have a lower dip in quality. If we put more power into the processing and focus less on graphics, then we can start to get to the point where the audience and the player models are starting to slowly come together until they're the exact same things. And I feel like that's what's going to happen next. Like they showed earlier with the rocks and things like that, like all the individual rocks and individual particle effects and things like that. That is what they're going to focus on, giving that stuff the same level of quality as the player model. Also, giving them the ability to move dynamically. Like they don't have the exact same script. Like everything is different. They move based on how you interact with it, and all this is going at the exact same time. That's what's going to be the next frontier of video games. Only thing that can go further than that is when VR technology gets to the point where they can have stuff like this and all the dynamic individual moving parts and the quality of the background models and effects and levels and things like that. Like once all that gets moved over to VR, then we're going to be going towards the future. And it's only a matter of time before we get to the point where we can get this stuff so far down to a science that we're creating simulations, and then we're stuck in the simulation the simulation model where we're creating humanity in video games, and it gets so real to the point where, okay, you're in the video game, but do you know that you're in a simulation or not? And then next you know, we're looping all over again. The video game is going to start off with humanity at its very earliest, and then they're going to evolve through the game, and then they're going to create a simulation or something that's going to keep going in and in and in and in. But yeah, I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section down below. What are your expectations for PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X? I believe that's what it's called. I really don't know. They're getting real weird with their naming, and getting weird with your naming can backfire. I mean, look at Nintendo when the Wii and the Wii U came out. A lot of people didn't even know the Wii U was a separate thing. So you try to explain to an average everyday mom that still calls video game consoles Nintendos what the difference is between an Xbox One X and an Xbox Series X. Chances are, if they don't have someone there to guide them, there's going to be a lot of disappointed people on Christmas morning. Let's just put it that way. With that being said, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm Devon DaVinci. Hopefully you've just been a little more enlightened. I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say in the future. Until then, I'm going to give you the deuces, and I'm signing out. Deuces.